Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing on Sunday evening. Joining us from the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where the 76ers have just defeated the Charlotte Hornets to get their second win of the season, much needed. It's Tim Bontemps.
This is one of those games where everybody was trying to go home with a loss, and ultimately somebody had to. That ended up being Charlotte.
Hey, LaMelo Ball made an incredible shot to force overtime.
He certainly did. And Paul George didn't play in overtime, and the Sixers won anyway, thanks to Gershon Yabusele and Jared McCain. Just what you thought the Sixers season was going to be about.
He ran out of minutes, basically, is what happened there. Joining us from Dallas, Texas, is Bam MacMahon.
Howdy, partners.
Yeah, MacMahon, you're missing a heck of a Kyrie Irving display that's happening right now, but we'll keep you updated.
Oh, no, I am not.
Oh, look. Yeah, you're watching the Mavericks. I am currently watching the Suns. Is this a violation of terms? I'm watching the Suns.
Jackson might have to do some blurring there.
I'm not going to tell you where Jackson is. I'm just going to tell you that he's sitting a foot from the Vince Lombardi Trophy, or a Vince Lombardi Trophy.
Wow, fancy.
That's all I'm going to say. I said, Jackson, how's it going? And he just moved the camera over and showed me he's sitting next to a Vince Lombardi Trophy.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, Jackson is on the
Jackson is a big deal, as we know.
Yeah. I don't know where to begin. I'm just going to say one thing about your game, Bontemps. There was a review overturned in overtime of this game where I'm not sure whether Charles Lee is an unfettered genius, the coach of the Charlotte Hornets, or if I was Nick Nurse, if I would have been thrown out on this overturn in overtime. We don't really need to go into it. I'm just going to tell you.
I could just sum it up in 30. I can sum it up really quick. That LaMelo Ball was called for a foul on Jared McCain, stealing the ball, knocking the ball away from him at the top of the key. I think Charles Lee challenged it. I couldn't ask him because we did the pod right after the game. I think he challenged it because he had 2 timeouts. So I was like, well, what the heck? I might as well try to challenge it. That was my thought anyway. And they said that because he touched the ball first, it wasn't a foul. He basically tackled Jared McCain. I was never seen an overturn like this. After Courtney Kirkman and those guys were standing there for a while, I said, well, I think this is going to go pretty badly for Philly because this was taking a long time for what I thought would be a 10-second challenge. So whether it was an ingenious thing or just sheer luck, they had an opportunity and then didn't go their way at the end. But
I would just say that LaMelo, who had a great game, I think he had 38 points.
Yeah.
LaMelo absolutely bear hugged Jared McCain. Somehow did not get called for a foul, and then the Hornets ended up with possession. If I was Nick Nurse, having had the week he's had, I would have gotten ejected.
Yeah.
All right. We have got a very unfortunate set of updates that have happened in the NBA over the last 3 days. Just a series of guys have gotten hurt. It's a real bummer to talk about, but it's right now the most important thing in the NBA, how these teams are going to fare with injuries to all of these players. It's crazy. You say they think come in threes. This came in like a 6-pack. I guess we'll start. There's no good place to start. We'll start with Zion Williamson, who is going to be out. He is listed as indefinitely, and I appreciate the Pelicans not knowing. I don't think you're going to see him in November. I think that's the best way you can put it. I don't think you know when you're going to see him. This is a hamstring injury. He had 2 different hamstring injuries just last week, one to his right hamstring, one to his left hamstring. This is his left hamstring. Injuries to both hamstrings, one right and one left, have ended his last 2 seasons. 2 years ago, it ended his season in January. Last year, you remember he had the hamstring injury right at the end of the regular season. Or was it in the play-in? Was it in the play-in game?
It was in the play-in game.
It was in the play-in when he was dominating the Lakers down the stretch of that game.
He had one hamstring injury last week. He came back from it. There was another game where they played the Cavs on Wednesday where he left the game in the first half with a leg injury, was cleared, came back in the second half, played relatively well. They lost the game, but played relatively well. And then apparently re-injured it sometime on Friday and got imaging, and now he's out a long time. The Pelicans have 6 players on their injury report for Monday's game. Trey Murphy is expected to come off of it and play his first game of the year. But MacMahon, I don't know what you're going to do if you're the Pelicans. None of these injuries are like season threatening, but you're already losing so much ground.
Yeah, and you hope Zion's isn't season threatening because you know his history with hamstrings, and you know the way how difficult it's been for him to recover from those in the past. The tendency for those to be aggravated. So you hope this is, however many 4 weeks, whatever it may be, and not something that lingers. But man,
I would be surprised if it was 4 weeks. I think
right.
If it was 4 weeks, it would be on the front end of their timeline.
I said 4 weeks because that's basically like a best case scenario type of situation. But I mean, the Pelicans are just trying to keep their heads somewhere near above water. They might be doomed by January the way things are, and through no fault of really anyone, just medical misfortune. It's a lot like the Grizzlies season last year, minus obviously the superstar suspension has started. But at a certain point, like, you can only sustain so many injuries and have any sort of a fighting chance. And the Pelicans,
well, in Memphis's case, Ja missed 25 games with the suspension.
That's what I said, minus the superstar suspension. But then, it was Ja, it was Smart, it was Bane. It was they had the injury report that you had to scroll on Twitter to finish. And this is just a deal where it is pretty much every single one of their best players is, in Trey Murphy's case, just now coming back, and the rest of their case is out for a little while. And like, I have no idea what Willie Green is supposed to do. I mean, even Jordan Hawkins is out for a couple weeks. When you talk about, well, at least a young guy's going to have a chance to step up. Even he's out for a couple weeks now. So I don't know, man. The Pelicans, I don't know how much more time we'll be spending on the Pelicans this season, unfortunately.
It's a devastating injury. I mean, it's, there was all this talk about Zion being in better shape and looking good and physically feeling good coming into camp. And, Trey Murphy hurt his hamstring instantly. DeJounte Murray bust his thumb first game of the season. Herb Jones is now hurt. CJ McCollum is hurt. I mean, like MacMahon said, Jordan Hawkins starts to do some stuff. He got hurt. Like, it's just not much you can do. And we're going to talk about a lot of these East teams that are struggling. I'm obviously here in Philly. They desperately needed this win today. They can say, hey, we've had a ton of injuries. When we get our guys back, we're going to be in the mix because the East is terrible at the moment. Out West, you don't have the same grace. And if the Pelicans are going to have to try to dig up some wins where they can, because they could, like MacMahon said, it could easily turn into Memphis last year where they're just looking at a huge gap in the standings. And, at some point they may just have to hard pivot the other way and try to do what Memphis did and get a top 10 pick in a loaded draft and look to next year.
Yeah.
They also own Milwaukee's pick this year if it falls in the top 4.
Correct. Top 4 protected, which, listen,
we'll get to that.
It's possible. It's not impossible.
Yeah. All right. So staying in the West.
By the way, that unbelievable Kyrie performance, 43 points, missed a tough 3 on their last possession. They lose their second straight game by a 1 possession margin. Joker cool 37, 18, and 15. I know we said it's an extraordinarily high bar for Joker to have any real chance of being an MVP again.
He's coming at it.
Whew.
He's coming at it. Our guy Stats Williams just texted me and said he could lead the league this year in points, rebounds, and assists totals, and he ain't wrong. He might.
I mean, Joker is.
And by the way, he's got to do that every night for them to win. They're winning all these games by basically a bucket, and he's doing that every night. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Without Aaron Gordon, Murray's starting to come around a little bit, but without Aaron Gordon,
a little bit. This is Nikola Jokic dragging these guys along, and it's unbelievable what he's doing right now.
It's insane.
Even by his standards.
Michael Malone, he's averaging a career high in minutes. This is coming into tonight, 38. I'm not sure how many he played tonight, but
38 tonight, and it's going to be tough to play him fewer than that against good teams, especially.
Right. So before the game tonight, there was a reporter that said to Michael Malone, "What's the ideal number of minutes for Jokic to play?" He goes, "The ideal number, 48."
Yeah.
The ideal numbers he has the Will Chamberlain season, and he averages over 48 because he plays every minute of every game. That's the number.
But you know who else was playing a ton of minutes and was playing? I mean, it's early, but was playing MVP-ish basketball? Kevin Durant.
It's a professional segue, MacMahon.
Well,
boy,
I was gonna segue to the Grizzlies, but because the Suns just went to overtime.
How are you going to rob me of such a smooth segue?
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
It's his pod, though, MacMahon. Got to just fall in line.
Well, Jackson, clip that for my my resume.
For your reel, for your pod reel.
Let's
guys,
go.
I got an email in my inbox on Saturday. It's one of those all caps ones.
Oh,
it says Memphis Grizzlies medical update. I created a folder for it. I have just a folder where it just automatically, it's folded right into.
You're a masochist.
Ja Morant, already dealing with Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart injuries.
Smart is he playing tonight? He is
not.
Okay, he's close to being. He was at least upgraded on the injury report.
He was like it was one of those things where they did it half an hour-ish before the game. They announced he wasn't playing.
Okay, but Smart just coming back. Bane's out for a little while with a oblique, which is something you usually see in baseball players. And now Ja, and they're doing this thing where they're just saying they're week to week. But man, read this one because this one sounds like it doesn't sound like a.
Hold on, let me go into my
my got your little folder.
My folder. It's just. I mean, I saw there was a Grizzlies fan. I think you sent it to me.
Yeah.
A Grizzlies fan went as a medical Grizzlies medical update tweet because they put it on their Twitter feed.
The scariest thing that you could possibly be, they said. This was
while attempting to catch a lob during the third quarter of the November 6th game against the Los Angeles Lakers, a game that he was killing in and talking trash, by the way.
And even after he got hurt.
That was not in the release. We'll return to the release. Morant was destabilized midair by a Lakers player, causing him to fall into extreme right hip flexation.
Flexion.
You're right. You're right, MacMahon. I always count on you for accuracy on word pronunciation. So,
man, the diction master.
Imaging revealed a posterior hip subluxation without dislocation, which is always good.
Hey, that's the one bit of good news in here.
Thank God. Along with multiple associated grade 1 pelvic muscle strains.
That's when I was like, "Ooh, golly!"
Multiple.
Yes, pelvic.
In other words, his hip is considered week to week. Updates will be provided as appropriate. You know those updates are going to say Memphis Grizzlies medical update.
I mean, honestly, the sliver here of good news is Scottie Pippen Jr., who they converted from a two-way into a standard deal just before the season started. What did he do in his, when they plug him in the starting lineup? It was against the Wizards, but the man put up a triple-double. First father-son duo to have triple-doubles. How about that little piece of NBA trivia?
It's a good little stat.
And they had the Wizards. Tonight they're smoking the Portland Trail Blazers. So a friendly little start to Ja's absence.
Well, you had a glorious opportunity for a trivia corner there. Name the father-son duo to have a triple-double.
Oh, well, my bad.
Well, listen, Memphis deserves a lot of credit. They've had a bunch of injuries, and you look at their team. Jalen Wells is already looking like a player. That was a good find. They turned Scottie Pippen into a player. Jay Huff has been a really nice piece for them off the bench. Another guy that's been on a couple teams that looks like a real quality NBA rotation player. Like they've built a rotation around a lot of guys that were discarded other places, and they've developed, and it's really allowed them to stay afloat here early on as they've dealt with these injuries to their main core guys. And I mean, they've got a pretty deep interesting roster when they get everybody right. And it's, look, you're right, MacMahon. They're beating Portland, they're beating Washington, but we just talked about the Pelicans. They've already lost to Portland twice. Like these games matter if you're trying to have position, especially if you're down guys. So these are all really important wins, and it's a lot of it's in part due to the depth that they've created. Zach Kleiman and their front office finding guys all over the place. It's very impressive.
Still, though, if you're missing 3 of your 5 starters for multiple weeks, you just can't.
No, I'm not saying it's going to be a path to getting them to 55 wins doing it this way, but it's like the fact they have this depth, it's allowing them to survive, which is what you need to do right now.
Well, you're missing 3 or 5 starters. The starting center has changed over the last few days here. Zach Edey now coming off the bench, which is interesting. But Jaren Jackson Jr. is off to a great start this year. One of the silver linings in last season's misery is that, he basically, they were like, hey, spread your wings, expand your game, experiment. And he wasn't efficient last year, but he did a lot of things offensively that, he basically got to treat the season like a lab. And he is off to the best offensive start of his career so far. And obviously they're going to need him to keep that up to be able to put some wins together while these guys recover.
No question.
All right, let's keep on going. Let's move west of Phoenix. Kevin Durant, after having another terrific game Friday night against the Mavericks right there in Dallas, with another clutch win. He's leading the league, he's coming into tonight leading the league in clutch scoring. They're
7-0 in clutch games pending.
7-0, although they're in overtime right now against the Kings and down 6.
Yeah.
And Bradley Beal just got rolled onto his knee by DeMar DeRozan. He stayed in the game, but I don't know. I'm worried. He's moving a little bit gingerly out there. But that was not a good sign. But they're in danger of losing. You're gonna take some losses when you play that many close games anyway. But Durant finished that game, MacMahon.
Dude, this one really, when I saw this come out Saturday night, I was stunned because he finished the game, hit some big shots in the fourth quarter. There was no indication. I guess he might have rubbed the calf at one point, but I talked to him post game. He didn't get extra treatment. He didn't have any wrap or anything on the calf. He was upbeat. He was in a good mood. He wasn't limping or anything. So I saw he's out for 2, and they're not sure exactly when it happened. They just know it happened at some point during the fourth quarter. The good news is they don't think it is a significant, like a major strain. They don't think it's too serious. So they say he'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. There is hope this will be a shorter term absence. Having said that, obviously with Kevin Durant, especially with a calf injury, you're going to err on the side of caution. But the concern with the way that the Suns had been pulling out games, other than just point differential being an indicator of future success, blah, blah, blah. The concern was KD's minutes were really getting run up because every single game was down to the wire. Of their 8 wins, only one of those has come by more than 6 points. The last 3 where the other team's got the ball on the final possession with a chance to tie or take the lead. So his minutes were way up there. And obviously with his age and his injury history, that's not ideal. And unfortunately, he's going to have to sit for a little bit here. And we'll see what the Suns can do without him. Yeah,
well, remember, Durant had a calf strain this summer with Team USA, which happened. I think he kind of was talking about how it was a bit sore, and I don't know if I don't have enough details to say it was exactly the same, but he reported to Team USA and said it was bothering him. They got an MRI and he missed 2 weeks. And so
No, it ended up being even longer than 2 weeks, wasn't it?
You know what? You know what?
It was almost a month because he didn't play. I was there July 5th and he didn't do anything until what? Because he missed the opening game too, didn't he?
No, he played the first game of he missed
So maybe
all
it was
5.
3 weeks.
He missed a week in Vegas. He missed a week in Abu Dhabi. He missed a week in London. He missed 3 weeks.
Yeah.
He missed 3 weeks, give or take. Maybe 3.5. But he did play in the first game of the Olympics. And he
That's
maybe
right.
8 of 9 shooting. I don't know how far though before he went to Team USA that it bothered him. The point is, like, it's the second time this year where he's had sort of an injury. They looked at it, and so obviously you got to be protective there because he had the calf injury way back in.
This goes back to the whole thing with Kevin Durant. He played 75 games last year. It's the same thing with AD and LeBron, right? We talked about it all summer. Those 3 guys last year were healthy all year. Games played the years before that for Kevin Durant, 47, 55, 35. Like, that's, hard to assume he's going to play 75 games. He's now not going to play 75 games. And like you said, MacMahon, obviously they have to win these games. It's not like you can't give away games in the West, but the guy his age playing the load he's playing, especially at both ends, because he's had to be a big part of their defensive stuff too, playing a lot of center down the stretching games. It's a heavy load on a guy with the amount of miles and wear and tear on his body. And it's, it sucks he got hurt because he's playing out of his mind. He's probably been the MVP the first 3 weeks, but it's also not exactly a stunner either.
Beal, by the way, just had a 4-point play, so I guess he's recovering okay. That was one of those injuries where a guy falls into your knee, and you're worried about that MCL. So hopefully he avoided all that and he just made a shot. But he's still.
Yes. I've noticed sometimes with stars, like, the ball has healing powers. Once they get the ball, they feel a little bit better.
I think he's about 1 of 4
shots.
I think he's about 1 of 4 shooting since then. But so anyway, hopefully he's okay. I will say on the Durant thing, they thought he was going to come back sooner, and then he kind of slowed down a little bit. No one wants to use the word setback. And then I asked him when he did an interview, it was in London, and I asked him if what happened to him when he had that calf injury when he was with the Warriors, where he then tore the Achilles on the same leg, if that affected him as he was coming back from this injury. Considering the coach of the Olympic team was Steve Kerr, and he was deciding when to bring him back. And, I was, nobody was telling me that, but I mean, I thought it was worth an ask. And Durant sort of snapped no. No, and this topic is closed for discussion. I don't know if I believe that, but that's what he said. So keep that in mind.
I think it was a perfectly reasonable question in theory. And I also completely understand why KD has zero interest in discussing that subject.
Yeah.
It cost him maybe a championship and a full season of his career. So that's but that's all. It does get right back to why, you're not rushing him back from this.
Correct.
You've got to
and they're off to a great start, and they have star redundancy.
Yeah, all these close wins have helped them a lot.
It looks like they're going to lose tonight.
Yeah, they're down 7 with a minute to go. One thing that's interesting to monitor is it's been a pretty rough start for Devin Booker by his standards. He's shooting low 30s from 3. He's down around 42% from the field, not typically where he's at. Obviously they're going to need him to play really well with Kevin out. They're already a thin team, but that's something I'm curious to see if it starts to adjust over the next couple of weeks. You would expect him to start having some big games and having things start to go the other way, given the kind of scorer he is.
He does have 12 assists tonight, but he's not shooting well tonight. And I will say that he was sick for 3 or 4 days this last week. He didn't miss any time, but he definitely was affected. Illness is really, there's this illness that's kind of going through the NBA right now that's really knocking some guys out. There's a lot of guys getting knocked out with illness. I saw Jaime Jaquez from the Heat missed 3 games because of a stomach bug. I mean, that's rough. And you're seeing guys with illnesses kind of left and right. So I don't know how much that affected Booker, because you have 3 sort of sluggish games at this point in the season. It does drag down your stats, but I would think he would agree with you. I don't think he's played his best basketball, but they're winning. So at least to this point. So, all right. So the most recent injury happened tonight. And that was to Chet Holmgren. I was not permitted to watch that game because it was in Oklahoma City. It was Warriors.
I'm sure you saw the replay, and it was not pleasant to watch.
No, it wasn't.
I really couldn't even tell what he hurt.
Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious what he hurt. His whole body landed on his right hip.
Yeah, but I mean, I couldn't tell if it was his ankle or his knee or.
Well, the way he landed, I was worried that maybe it was something with the foot because it kind of like landed and the foot bent a little bit. But no, he crashed down on that hip. And
he contested, for people that didn't see, he contested Andrew Wiggins' shot at the rim and fell. His whole body went horizontal, and he landed with all his weight on his right leg and on his right hip, and was clearly in a lot of pain. Needed help off the court. They ruled him out with a hip injury well before the game was over. And, there was no update as of now from the Thunder about any kind of severity of it or anything. But obviously, Chet, we've talked about it. Chet has been unbelievable to start the year for the Thunder. They were off to a great start. Also are off to a great start, even though they lost the Warriors tonight. And this is a team now, doesn't have Isaiah Hartenstein for at least another couple of weeks, I think. I think it's going to be closer to Thanksgiving that he's back, at least from what I remember of the timeline. I haven't looked at it closely. Jalen Williams has had multiple issues with his hamstring. He's out for a while.
Yeah, he had they announced, we talk about teams not wanting to say a player has a setback. The Thunder announced that Jalen Williams had a setback.
Right. Yeah, and then he's been out since training camp, and he's not near a return.
No.
Henry Williams, who also plays some center for them, he had an off-season surgery, and it's going to be a little bit for him. Hartenstein, when he broke his hand, I believe it was the final preseason game, and they said he'd be reevaluated in 5 to 6 weeks. It is a shooting hand. He does still have the I don't know if it's a cast or brace or whatever it is. He's still wearing that. So I don't know how soon he'll be back. And look, we don't know. Like they literally only told us what part of Chet's body was hurt. They just called it a right hip injury. We don't know any specifics at this point. Other than the fact that he was clearly in pretty excruciating pain. Hopefully it's just a bruise, but we don't know.
Yeah.
But we do know this. Like, Chet is a tough dude. He's not going to be writhing in pain, unless he's really hurt.
Yes, he has not missed a game. So he obviously missed his whole rookie year with the foot fracture. Right. He played all 82 last year and has played every game this year. He's not a guy who he's not a guy.
I did see you posted on Instagram a picture from the locker room watching the game on TV. So hopefully it's not anything too bad. But look, like Dylan Jones, who they drafted in the first round this year, is like a 6'5" kind of combo forward big type, is probably going to get some minutes. He played some today. Ousmane Dieng is going to probably get some minutes. Like they're going to be Johnny Holstaff, and it's a super small team, but it's going to be interesting to see how it looks.
Yeah, they're going to junk up if Chet has to miss time, they have no choice but to just have to try to junk up the game. And I mean, they were playing lineups that it was like 6'6" and under. Where Jalen Williams.
That's basically all there's left on their roster is 6'6" and under. Like they don't. I mean,
Ousmane Dieng basically, but
yeah.
And the Warriors got up. I don't know what it ended up being, 30 some odd, and then the Thunder put a little scare in them. They got it down to 6 or 7. They're late before the Warriors pulled away, and Steph gave a little night after
night to OKC. The Warriors, Steph had 36 in this game. So the Warriors run the Boston, Cleveland, Oklahoma City gauntlet at 2-1, which is pretty damn good. The Warriors have to be boarding that plane home tonight. Or are they're going home now, right?
I'm headed to see them. Oh, Captain Klay coming home. Did you keep that hat? You look.
I actually thought about. So yeah, on NBA Today on Friday, we debuted the Captain Klay hats. They're going to honor him. Can I just say, I'm not sure how Klay's going to receive that. First off, it's a sponsored element. I mean, there's a health care company that has its name on the hat. Secondly, it's got a Warriors logo on it.
Yeah, and
they don't expect him to put one on, do they? Like, at least not right now.
No. I talked to Klay for a story that'll come out on Tuesday, and he went out of his way to make it clear. His exact words were, "I'm so grateful," and he emphasized so, for his time with the Warriors. But it's no secret, like, how uncomfortable it was for the last year. especially, and that he basically decided, okay, they've kind of disrespected me. It's time for me to go. And so I do think it might be a little awkward because they want to celebrate him.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that awkward. I think it's going to be a big love fest before the game. And like, I think it'd be one thing if if he was on a minimum deal somewhere, or like things weren't in a good place. Like he's happy in Dallas, right? Like I'm not saying it's going to be like kumbaya.
I'm just saying, I think Klay might want to just kind of give a wave and get it. I don't think he wants some long.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to be like Ray Allen with the Heat coming back to Boston. I don't think it's going to be like that at all.
I don't think Klay's over it. I'll just leave it at that.
That's a different thing. I'm not saying it's like, again, I don't think it's going to be kumbaya all around. I do not think it's Ray Allen going back to Boston.
I think there's going to be some great times to fet Klay in Oakland / San Francisco. This ain't going to be one of them.
No, I hear that. Well, he brought up when he first got here, and I asked about it again, Scottie Pippen going to the Trailblazers. And, he was living in Portland as a kid at the time, and he said it was one of the best days of his life. And that, obviously the Trailblazers didn't win a title, but 3 minutes away from the finals, as he said, was 34, same as Klay now. So, and I mentioned, I said, well, can you kind of, because Scottie Pippen's success with Portland is something Klay pointed to as like an inspiration to him. And I said, well, can you kind of relate to, to the way things ended with him in Chicago? And he's like, I can't say that. Not to that degree is what he said. So again, I think he doesn't want to express any kind of bitterness publicly.
Apples to oranges. Yeah. But one of the things that pissed off Scottie was he never got paid by the Bulls.
Sure.
And there's been many stories written over the years. He signed like a contract that made it hard to pay him. He finally got paid in Portland, and so he was getting paid as well. Klay maybe didn't like the offer in the last year, but Klay, the Warriors took care of Klay.
That's all I'm saying. This is not going to be like Ray Allen. Like, again, I think the apt comparison here is it's not Ray Allen going back to Boston after defecting to Miami. Like, everybody's going to get along. It's going to be a very nice moment. They're going to give him a gigantic standing ovation, and then the game will start.
Well, and I do wonder if there is a part of Klay that it stings to see the Warriors playing so well.
I'm sure it does. Come on, he's a human. Of course it does. And like they're having a blast. And
but he was also ready to leave. That's what I mean.
I get it, but I think what MacMahon is saying is right. I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's a human being, and like they're not robots.
Sure. I agree with all that. I just think ultimately, I think this is going to be it's going to be a very nice moment before the game, and there's not going to be any drama, and he's going to be celebrated, and he's going to be happy about it, and then the game will start. That's all. I don't think there's any reason to think it's going to be anything but that.
Well, a nice thing that happened for the Warriors on Sunday was that DeAnthony Melton came back from the back issue he was been having that knocked him out, and he scored 19 points with 10 rebounds. And, Buddy Hield kind of had just not much of an impactful night because he's been killing it. And then the other guy that they had to replace, Klay, has a great game. So they're in a really good place right now. Steph hit 7 threes. Kuminga had 20 off the bench. They got, as a nod to Captain Klay, they got boat raced in Cleveland. The Cavs were up by 40. I'm not sure there's been a more clinically perfect half of basketball played in the history of the Cavs franchise, and I realize what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That first half, it was like the Spurs in the 2014 finals. Like, the level they were playing was preposterous. I was watching it with Bob Myers in the green room because we were doing Countdown on Friday night, and we were just kind of laughing. Like, there was like possessions where the Warriors were playing like really good defense and the Cavs would hit a 3.
Ooh, aggregators. Bob Myers laughing at Warriors getting blown out.
Well, we'll say Bob was having some fun. Bob was like, that's okay. I think the Warriors have won some games in Cleveland. He's like, they've won some games in Cleveland. They've taken some gold out of there. I go, yeah, Bob. I go, this does call to mind Warriors Cavs games. I seem to have the same memory of Game 6 in 2016. So there was some Cleveland Warriors trash talk going on there, but I think the Warriors just sort of shrugged at that one and said, "What are you going to do?" The Cavs are red hot, but they obviously feel pretty good about themselves. I will point out one other thing, another injury update to an East team.
Mm-hmm.
The Pacers gave an update on their guards today, and it won't get the headlines, but Andrew Nembhard is out. Nembhard.
Wasn't he questionable to play? I'm not aware of this update.
Yeah, let me get the exact. Oh, it's not a good update if you're.
That's what I mean. He's been questionable to play for a while.
He will not be questionable for a while. Hold on,
no, that's not good.
Well, the one thing I'll tell you, I know Neesmith won't be back until next month, and so they said he's out till next month. So Aaron Neesmith is going to be out till December.
Oh wow, that's a long time.
I think we should have a podcast where it's just Wendy reading injury update emails.
That seems like that's what we're doing.
Unfortunately, we could fill a whole podcast with them.
We're filling a whole podcast with injuries right now.
I'm saying just you reading the emails.
Out for at least 2 more weeks with knee tendonitis. At least 2 more weeks.
Yeah, that's not great.
As you pointed out in our group chat, Halliburton's doing some Halliburton-esque type of stuff.
Well, here's something else. The Pacers played a great game today. I'll get to that here, but Rick Carlisle was explaining before the game about Tyrese Halliburton. We've obviously talked about it here. A lot of people have talked about it, and he kind of, well, again, let me get the exact quote because I don't want to get aggregated incorrectly. But he said before the game, he kind of implied that there was an injury to Halliburton that wasn't announced. So here's what he said, quote, even though he was on the Olympic, this is Rick Carlisle on Tyrese Halliburton. Even though he was on the Olympic team, he didn't play much and he didn't get to work out much because he actually got injured while he was there. We knew about that. I said that, got an MRI. I think it was on a calf, but don't hold me to that. And then he was dealing with another ailment into the fall. So I'm not sure to take that if he was saying another ailment is the ailment from the Olympics, and then he was dealing with another ailment.
Well, here's what I mean. Whatever way that was, the bottom line is today he had 35 and 14 and was plus 12 on 11 for 18 shooting, including going 7 for 7 or 7 for 8, I should say, on twos and going to 9 for 11 at the line, and they beat the Knicks by 11. So that is the kind of Tyrese Halliburton we've been waiting to see. That is a huge performance, especially in light of this news by Andrew Nembhard.
How about Ben Mathurin?
Well, Ben Mathurin also had 38 points on 13 for 18 shooting. And by the way, this goes to a stat that I have by Stats Williams. It's going to also be a little whiz of the quiz situation.
Oh, okay.
And now to present today's trivia question, the whiz of the quiz, Tim Bontemps.
Karl-Anthony Towns this season.
Ooh.
As a contesting defender on shots in the restricted area.
This is a devastating stat.
Karl-Anthony Towns is allowing 91.4% shooting. I want to repeat that. 91.4%.
That's gotten worse
shooting.
Since Friday. You came on NBA Today on
Correct.
Friday.
It's gotten worse because I believe every single basket that's happened since then has been every shot has been a bucket since then. Players are shooting 32 for 35 against Karl Towns in the restricted area this season. Obviously, the worst defensive percentage of any player who's guarded at least 30 shots at the rim, courtesy of Stats Williams. There are 57 guys who have defended at least 30 shots. Who do you guys think are the second and third worst guys past Karl Towns?
At the rim?
At the rim.
How many guys?
TJ McConnell.
It's that kind of player for both of them.
By the way, TJ McConnell is like leading the league in field goal percentage in the paint.
Not TJ McConnell.
I was honoring TJ.
Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey is giving up 29 for 34 shooting. He's second.
Oh, no.
And third is Cam Thomas, who's given up 23 for 31 shooting. Karl Towns, though, worse than both Josh Giddey and Cam Thomas at the rim. Slight problem for a team that traded for him to be their anchor at center.
Well, it's not so much that they're anchor. They don't have another option.
That's my point. They traded for him to be their anchor at center.
They traded for him to be their starting center, and they hope that with the pieces around him, they could have a solid to good defense. But you can't overcome.
You can't be going to 90% shooting at the rim. And by the way, Carl is doing what you'd expect on offense. He is shooting 55% from three. He's averaging 24 and 13 a game. Their offense is really good. I have to double check where the numbers are at right this moment. But they were in the top five. Okay,
I do have them, my good sir.
Okay, so what do we got?
Offensively, they rank number 2 in the league right now, just behind the Cleveland Cavaliers. They edged ahead of Boston today. Boston
we'll get
got a win over Milwaukee, but they passed the Celtics today. They have the number 2 offense in the league. They have the number 21 defense in the league. Last year, they had the number 9 defense in the league. So here's a classic game today, right? Anunoby, who, by the way, is having a terrific offensive season. Anunoby scores 25 points on 9 of 14 shooting. Karl Towns scores 30 points on 11 of 19 shooting. Jalen Brunson scores 33 points with 6 rebounds and 10 assists on 11 of 17 shooting in 41 minutes. That's another story. Josh Hart goes 7 of 12 with 10 rebounds and 6 assists. I defy you to tell me that's a losing box score. They shoot 55% as a team on the road and give up 132 to a team that is banged up and missing a couple of key players and has no center.
They shot 67%
no
on
center
twos
behind
and
Miles
lost.
Turner. No backup center.
They shot 67% on twos and lost, in part because the Pacers went 21 for 46 from 3, and the Knicks went 7 for 25. And one of the issues they've had is that they haven't had a lot of 3-point volume in a lot of games for as efficient as their offense can be and has been.
By the way, the Timberwolves lost on a play with 7 seconds left tonight to Nikola Jovic. Had a 3-point play to carry the Miami Heat to a victory in Minnesota.
I believe MacMahon. I was following along online on this. I believe that play by Nikola Jovic happened with our guy Rudy Gobert put on the bench by Chris Finch. Is that correct?
Ooh, I'll be honest with you. I had a lot of things going on, and I missed that play.
Yes, Finch pulled him out for the and one at the rim. Later said, quote, "I didn't get it right down the stretch with the lineup combinations." Then Rudy said, "I'm being pulled late before the last defensive possession." Quote, "I'm pretty good on that end of the floor, and I live for those moments. It's what I do best. I was frustrated for sure, but decisions. Coach made decisions, and we're living with that."
Oh, we didn't even mention Jimmy Butler's missed the last 2 games with an ankle injury. He didn't play in this game.
Further, everyone remembers the last play, but I think we as a team, we remember the last few minutes where we were up 7 points at some points and 5. So yeah, none of us is perfect. Going to all learn to be better.
By the way, Tyler Hero is averaging a career high 23 points a game, shooting a career high 45% on threes, shooting a career high 50% overall. I think he was 9 of 15 in this game, had 26. Keeping by the way, if you're either Heat or 4 and 5 with Butler out, 4 and 5 is home court for the first round right now. So that's in the East. That's a pretty big accomplishment. All right. The Bucks hosted the Celtics today. Giannis has had in New York earlier this week. The Giannis criticized. Well, Bontemps, you were at that game. Giannis has lost. Well, I wouldn't say lost his temper, but Giannis has had moments this week where he's gotten frustrated with the reporter whose side, and today got pissed off Jaylen Brown for making a dad joke. But go ahead. What did Giannis say the other night in I don't
know. I don't know if I'd call it a dad joke, but
I would say it's exactly a dad joke. I've done this to my son.
Yeah, the old fake handshake.
We'll get to that in a second.
Okay. Yeah, this thing was weird after the game. Are you asking me about the thing with the reporter or what else he said?
Well, I mean, the reporter.
Or just the whole thing.
Reporter, I missed that.
So, all right. So after the game, the Bucks get smoked by the Knicks. It was never really competitive. Giannis used the word compete about 750 times in 5 minutes. It was very clear what his intent was. At one point, he said something along, I don't remember exactly, but it was something along the lines of, you don't get a lot of opportunities to play at a place like this. Sometimes I think people take it for granted. Again, he used the word compete a million times. It was clear what he was referring to, like we didn't play hard enough. And at some point during his presser, he looked at, I believe it was an AP reporter. It's not, admittedly not somebody I know, and was like, if you don't want to be here, you can leave. No one, as far as I could tell, could really understand what happened or why. PR guys asked me afterward, what happened there? I said, I think it might have just been one of those days for Giannis. I don't know, but it was strange. But he was very unhappy and then said, I'm going to lead by example and be better. God starts with me. And he comes out today and had, I believe, 43, 15, and 7 with one turnover in the game today. And right from the beginning of the game.
17 in the first half?
Yeah, 27 and 7 in the first half. Finished with 43.
They got up by 17 or 18
yes.
or something like that.
He had 43, 13, and 5 with 2 blocks and 1 turnover in 39 minutes. It was 18 for 29 from the field. And the Celtics came out at the start of the second half after really barely showing up in the first half. And within about 90 seconds, the game was tied. And it felt inevitable they were going to win. They eventually won going away because Damian Lillard was terrible, 4-15 from the field, airballed a couple threes, wasn't close on a bunch of them. But ultimately, it just comes back to the same thing. This Bucks team cannot guard anybody at all.
If you don't want to be here, you can leave is an interesting statement because I think that's what people tampering and start whispering to Giannis.
So in the first half of this game, did he knock Jaylen Brown over? Jaylen Brown came back.
He cleared him out with an elbow on a drive, hit him up near the head, got called for, it was a very obvious offensive foul. And then coming back down the court the other way, he stuck his hand out to say like, hey, sorry, Jaylen, and then when Jaylen went out to say like, yeah, no big deal, he then pulled his hand back, which is a weird thing to do when you just elbow the guy in the head.
When we were kids, we would have gone psych.
Yeah,
you gotta, and with the hair, you got the hair to do it. I don't have the hair to do it.
I understand,
to your hair.
It was an odd time to try to do that when you literally just elbowed the dude in the head. It's not like Giannis is a weak dude either.
Jaylen Brown was not amused. What is
no,
Giannis is a child?
No. Yes. Jaylen Brown then called Giannis a child after the game, which then Giannis responded to our Jamal Collier when he was asked about it, because I saw the quote, pulled it up earlier. Giannis on the too slow handshake with Jaylen Brown, quote, it's a joke. He said he jokes around within the flow of the game with Brown. He was surprised to hear his reaction. This is who I am. I play the game with fun and joy. There's not a lot of fun and joy in Milwaukee.
Well, he also said that he does it with his kids, which is why it's he likes to make those dad jokes.
It's a dad joke.
Sure. There's a weird time to do a dad joke. If he hit his kid in the head with an elbow, I don't think he'd be doing a dad joke at the time. I think he'd say, are you all right?
I've done it.
In general, I'm not sure Jaylen Brown is the guy you do.
Yes.
Joke.
He's probably not a guy to mess with like that.
Yeah.
But look, regardless, the Bucks, we've talked a lot about the Bucks and their struggles. I don't think we need to rehash it too much.
Yeah.
Here's what I will say.
Giannis's dad joke timing is the least of the problems right now.
Yes. Here's what I will say. This is the Bucks schedule for up until they play the Celtics again in early December. They have Toronto on Tuesday at home. They have Detroit on Wednesday at home. Then they play Charlotte, Houston, Chicago, Indiana, Charlotte, Miami, Washington, Detroit again, and Atlanta. There's 8 of those games are at home, 8 of those 11 games. 9 of those 11 games are against teams that missed the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm.
That stretch, the next 3.5 weeks, that's going to determine what the Bucs season looks like. Because if they go 8-3, 9-2, 7-4, something like that in that stretch, right now they're 2-8. They go 7-4, they get to 9-12 through a quarter of the season. It's not great, but at least they'll have some momentum. They'll have their legs back under them. There'll be some receding of the waters.
Yeah, and they're in the East where you can overcome a tough start.
Everybody's got time in the East. But if they go 4-7, 5-6, 3-8, and they're sitting close to 10 games under 500 through a quarter of the season after a very soft schedule, then it's going to be DEFCON 1. Yeah. And people are going to be going, what's going on in Milwaukee on a lot of fronts.
Well, let me just say something before anybody starts to count their proverbial chickens. Detroit is 4-7, and they lost 2 games this week in the final seconds. And they won 1 game this week in the final seconds.
JB Bickerstaff hasn't playing hard.
And Cade Cunningham, I think, just barely missed his 4th consecutive triple-double today.
Hey, listen, they're playing well. JB Bickerstaff's done a good job. And by the way, as of right now, Toronto is beating the Lakers in the 3rd quarter in LA. If the Raptors win that game, if they win that game, the Milwaukee Bucks will have the worst record in the NBA through 10 games. At 2-8. Worse than the Sixers, who've had nobody healthy. Worse than Utah, who just beat San Antonio and who they beat the other night. Worse than Portland. Worse than everybody.
And Giannis's numbers are insane.
And he's missed 1 game, and Dame has missed 0. It's not even an injury thing. Like, yes, Chris Middleton's out, but Chris Middleton isn't solving the defensive issues.
When you talk about injuries around the league, like the Bucks are not in the top teams that you bring up in that conversation.
No, like at best, they're going to have the 2nd worst record in the NBA at the end of the night, and they might have the worst.
And the other thing is, like, what can they do to try to fix this? And Wendy, you were talking this week about how, hey, the Bucks are trying to make upgrades in the trade market. The problem is, with what? So
Bontemps and I reported on this on our Friday story.
Oh, the old Romo Witten notebook.
That's right. We don't know who. We don't know. It's the Cheat on MacMahon annual weekly piece.
Might be the name of it. We don't have a good name yet.
The Bucks,
name submissions for the column.
I'm banned from that notebook. Go on.
the Bucks, because at the beginning of last week, people were like, "Oh, what about Giannis? Is it going to happen there?" So I was talking to people in the league about the Bucks, and I started hearing from people who were saying to me, "Yeah, the Bucks called us about trades." I go, "About who?" And they're like, not Giannis and not Dame.
Yeah.
In fact, I was talking to one team, I think on Thursday, and I was on the phone with this team, and I go, "Hey, have the Bucks called you yet?" And they're like, No, they haven't called us. I go, "Well, I just talked to like 4 teams in the last day that the Bucks called." I was like, "Yeah, well, they haven't called us." And then he's like, "Wait a minute."
Hey.
Bucks on the other line. He's like, "I gotta go."
Not Dame is interesting. I wonder, and this is just a pure hypothetical, I wonder if they put Dame on the market, how much interest there would be.
There would be interest, sir.
And there would be some. But again, it's the same thing we've talked about a lot. These large salary players are very difficult to trade, particularly point guards and centers, because everybody's got one. Now, not everybody's got one quite as good as Dame, obviously, but it's not as simple as it was in the past, especially with the new restrictions on trades. If a guy like Giannis is available, teams will figure out a way to make stuff happen. I don't think Dame is in that category anymore.
I would just say that, and they're 2-8 right now. I can't predict what would happen if they're 4-20. Okay.
Well, yeah, these next 11 games are going to tell a lot on all these fronts. If they're 5-16,
right. I can't predict what's going to happen in that situation, but I would just say in general, they have to play this to the very last card.
No, I agree. And that's why I made it clear it's a hypothetical. I'm just saying, I don't think Dame has nearly the kind of value that
he does not
get him.
He does not. And look, we're already in the realm. We're already way past the realm that we thought was realistically possible to start the year. If we had said on October, like I was here in Philly, they beat the Sixers by 30. They're 2 wins.
They're 2-8. And they started 1-0. Yeah.
Well, they're 2 wins over the Sixers with Paul George and Joel Embiid out, and over the Jazz at home.
Oh,
those are 2 wins.
And they were in trouble in that game at half.
And the Jazz were up at halftime of that game. So like if we had said before the start of the year the Bucks are 2-8 through 10 games, we would have said Giannis hasn't played yet. Not Giannis is averaging 32 and whatever.
Yeah, 32, 13, and 5, basically. And, Dame had a not great game today, but
he's put up some numbers.
He's averaging 26 on,
and he hasn't missed a game.
Yeah.
Like, this is not again, I'm not saying the Bucks are going to be 5-16. I think they're going to win a handful of these games and they're going to stabilize some, and it'll, I think things will be all right in the short term. But this is already way different than could have guessed.
No, I mean, I don't think anybody thought that a 2-8 start was even in the realm of possibility for the Bucks with a healthy Giannis and Dame.
All right, before we go, we're in a corner, gentlemen.
Oh,
the corner has no losses in it.
Oh,
it's wine and gold in this corner.
Best start since when?
Ever.
No, I'm talking about in the league.
Oh, they've got the 5th longest winning streak to start a season. There's some teams that are tied in there, but it's the 5th longest winning streak.
Cavs corner. Got to find a sponsor.
Seriously, I mean, geez, 11-0, we can't get this thing sponsored. When do you got some pull in Cleveland?
Listen, I got plenty of sponsors on my weekly radio.
He has sponsors again. Oh, we have sponsors. He has sponsors.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
He, we.
Listen, they're looking for good news over there. If you check the Browns, what's going on with the Browns?
Hey, speaking of sponsors, I know we got Skims now, and they got Donovan wearing a pair of those on those national TV ads. I'm wondering when we get to film our ads.
Donovan, Wendy, put them in the ad together. Make it happen. Cavs are the 12th team to start 11-0 or better per Stats Williams in the SIG chat, and the first since the 2015-16 Warriors went 24-0 to start the year.
All right. Cavs are 11-0. They had a comeback against the Nets on the second night of a back-to-back on Saturday night. All right, so Bontemps, you were talking about the upcoming Bucks schedule. Here's the upcoming Cavs schedule.
Here we go, McMahon. This guy is ready. He's ready.
Monday, Cavs at Bulls.
And they should win. They should also beat the Nets more than by a point too, but they should beat
true.
the Bulls.
They're a little bit tired.
Listen, the Nets are a scrappy little group. The Nets are
playing well. Nets are playing hard. Jordy Fernandez has done a really, really good job. They're in every game. Dennis Schroeder's been really good. Cam Johnson's playing great. Cam Thomas is playing well for that. They've had a good start.
Yeah.
Jordy Fernandez is like Will Hardy in year one, where he's proven he's a good coach and he's too good for their own good right now.
Yes.
By the way,
they're going to need to start trading
guys.
guys.
The Cavs play the Bulls twice in this next week.
Correct.
Tuesday's game is just your regular game. Friday's game is an NBA Cup game. Make note of
those
it.
NBA Cup. It means
Monday and Friday, because in between they play Philly.
That's right. Well, hold on. Bulls on Monday in Chicago. Tuesday at Philly.
They don't. Wednesday. They don't play Tuesday. They play Wednesday.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. You're right. Take it easy.
Tuesday, the Sixers have the Knicks here.
Okay, hold.
You read medical emails better than you do.
Yes,
schedules.
you do.
I don't read well at all. Apparently tonight. All right, Wednesday, Cavs at 76ers. Second night of a back-to-back.
Yes, the Sixers will not have anybody playing in that game.
I can't. You ain't going to see Embiid, and I don't.
Paul George isn't going to play either. I would bet.
I don't know, but all right.
I'm betting that he's not playing. He didn't play in overtime today because of, I assume, a minutes limit. I'm pretty confident he's not going to play in a back-to-back on Wednesday. I imagine they'll be punting that game.
All right, Friday, NBA Cup, Bulls at Cavs.
We know Windy has already demanded that they win the NBA Cup.
I think they should try.
If they have their first loss to the Bulls in that NBA Cup game, what a devastating blow for Brian.
Listen, I got a question, serious question. If the Cavaliers win the NBA Cup, would there be a parade in downtown?
Yes, parades. There'd be a lot bigger.
It's like
bigger
Christmas
banner
week.
than the ribbon too. Lot bigger banner.
Well, in my mind, the Cavs banner for their championship is way too small. So they gotta.
We gotta upgrade that banner. Let's just make the 15-16 championship banner the new NBA Cup banner. Let's get one for like the side of the arena.
Yeah,
just make the side of the arena the new banner.
That banner is too small. I'm just going to tell you that banner should be. You think I'm kidding? That banner should be 4 times the size it is. I'm
not disagreeing with you. It's one of the most remarkable things ever.
All right. Sunday, Hornets at Cleveland. Those are their next 4 games. So I mean, it's
They
the
should
NBA.
be 15-0 going into another NBA Cup game on November 19th in
Next
Boston
Tuesday.
against the Celtics.
Next Tuesday, November 19th, as Bontemps said, at Boston. Could the Cavs be 15-0?
They should be 15-0. They're going to be 8 to 10 point favorites in every one of those games, at least.
All right.
Well, at least
now I'm going to tell you something else.
Preview.
Tell you something else. Here's Donovan Mitchell's stats.
More pronouncements. Oh, boy.
Donovan Mitchell is averaging 3 fewer shots a game, 5 less minutes a game, 4 less points per game, while shooting 5% higher on threes, about the same overall, and averaging way fewer assists, which may sound like a bad thing, but because they don't have to have the ball in his hands. Donovan Mitchell is playing like he is not, and he was Eastern Conference Player of the Week last week.
Yeah,
he's putting up good numbers, but Donovan Mitchell is not, the gas ain't down. They're doing this without needing to ride Donovan Mitchell right now.
Which is awesome because they rode him way too much last year, and his body was paid the price for it last year. So to be able to manage his minutes and limit his usage a little bit and not have such a huge burden on him and win all these games is a perfect blend.
Look, the Cavs, barring catastrophe, are going to be a top 2 seed in the East. They're already got 5.5 game lead on everybody other than Boston. And whether they finish ahead of Boston or not, if they're a top 2 seed in the East, you know what that means? That means that Cavs corner can last to the conference finals without having to face the Celtics before that. So, because of that, their entire next 71 games, to MacMahon's point about Donovan Mitchell last year, has to be making sure Donovan Mitchell is as good to go as possible on April 15th.
Yep.
He shouldn't play more than 30 minutes a game the rest of the season. He should keep his minutes right there. They should have a lot of ramp-up plan to be ready for the playoffs. Now, obviously, if they have 17 injuries, it's one thing, but they have a young, durable team. Jared Allen's a pretty durable player. Evan Mobley's been a durable player. Darius Garland had some wacky injuries last year, getting elbowed in the face and stuff, but he's generally been a pretty durable player. There's no reason to believe they're going to have a crazy set of injuries. And if they don't, they're not giving up a 5.5 game lead. They're just not over their field. So
the only thing I would say is the difference between the first and second seed is pretty significant. And so if there's a battle with Boston for seeding, I don't know how much you can.
I understand that to a point, but even still, it's to me more important that they have Donovan Mitchell as ready to go as possible. Because if they have home court and Donovan Mitchell's playing like he did last year in the playoffs, it ain't going to matter. They're not going to beat Boston anyway. He's got to be 110% ready to go.
Let's have a brief discussion about one of the phenomena of the first 11 games of the NBA season.
I don't think it's going to be brief, MacMahon.
Uh-oh.
He happens to be from the University of Virginia. He's a 6'5" combo guard.
I mean, he's not the most interesting story from the University of Virginia over the first 3 weeks of the season, but sure, we can talk about Ty Jerome.
Malcolm Brogdon's hurt.
Well, I would say Ryan Dunn's more interesting. We could talk about Ty Jerome.
I would say you and I just wrote about Ryan Dunn. I'm interested in him.
I know.
I'm still saying that he's not more fascinating than Ty Jerome,
right,
who played 2 games last year because of a chronic ankle injury and is averaging 10 points in 16 minutes a game. Obviously, this ain't holding. I'm just pointing out what this guy is doing on this hot start.
Yeah, I don't think he's got to shoot. I don't think he's got to shoot 60% and 58 from 3 for the season. I think we could probably just move that to the side.
62% from the field, 58% from 3-point range. MacMahon, Kenny Atkinson, they were playing the Nets Saturday night, and he's like, you know what? I'm finishing with Ty Jerome. Screw it. I'm finishing with him. By the way, they were down in this game by 10 points midway through the fourth quarter. It was Donovan's time to come out. He took him out.
As he should have.
I know. But
Harris LeVert, by the way, shooting 47% from 3. There's a lot of small sample size theater here.
Listen, they also might lose a game at some point.
Yes, of
course.
They
should have lost on Saturday.
Yes, they're going to lose some games, which is fine.
Cam Thomas shot him into it and then shot him out of it. That's kind of his role.
But listen, they're doing everything right. It's all working great, but they're now, because of the dysfunction across the East, they have a golden opportunity to really try to make sure that they're as ready to go as possible for the playoffs. Because again, even if they just win a playoff series again and back up what they did last year, that's a significant thing. If they get to the conference final, that's obviously a massive step forward for this team. So yeah, like Donovan Mitchell being at 30 minutes a game, he's got to stay at 30 minutes a game. He can't be getting up to 34 in the pursuit of a couple extra wins over the season.
I will say that their defense has been slipping a little bit in the last few games, and their pace, which was super crazy high early in the season, has slid down. I think they're just getting tired. They've played so many games. They haven't had a 2-day off thing yet. They're going to play their 12th game on Monday.
Yeah, the Sixers have played, I think, 8 or 9 games, and they've played 11.
Right. The Sixers did have to go to the West Coast, but still. Anyway, will the Cavs be 15-0 a week from now going into that Boston game? We're going to see. All right, that's all the good news we can stand today.
We might finally see Joel Embiid play by the next time we pod. How about that?
That would be nice. That would be nice to have some good news on an injury report for a change.
Be good.
He has served his suspension. His suspension has been satisfied.
He's on pace to return Tuesday night here in Philly. Knicks, Sixers. The last time Joel played was here in Game 6 back in April. And we will see if how he looks, and assuming he's out there and ready to go. Him and Paul George should both be playing on Tuesday. We'll see how it goes against Cat and the Knicks.
Well, he'll probably be able to finish at the rim.
He probably will. He always likes playing against Cat. So
yeah,
it will be very interesting to see how that goes.
You'll be right back there at the center, Bontemps.
Well, I will be, and then I'll be here for Cavs Corner against.
You better be there for the Cavs game,
Jared McCain, and Gershon Yabusele will be taking on the Big Four in Cleveland.
Gershon Yabusele has been one of the best signings in the offseason.
I'll tell you what. Before we go, like the way this guy Gershon Yabusele has played, it's saved the Sixers bacon. Like today, him and Jared McCain won them this game. Paul George was on the bench in overtime. Their only offense was either Jared McCain shooting the ball or Gershon Yabusele posting up. I mean, it was a ridiculous game.
Listen, there was a French big man who finished a game tonight. It was Gershon Yabusele, not Rudy Gobert. Okay, everybody have a nice night.
Just like I was going to say, you can flashback the Olympics.
Yabusele was awesome in the Olympics.
He got himself an NBA contract out of it.
My God, does he have strong legs? That's all I'm going to say.
He's built like a tree trunk, literally.
Oh my God. Thank you, MacMahon. Thank you, Bontemps. Thank you to Jackson, staying up late somewhere in America, sitting next to he attended an NFL game today, and he's sitting next to a Lombardi trophy. That's all I'm going to say about what Jackson's doing right now. Thank you, Jackson. Thank you for watching and listening to the Hoop Collective. We will talk to you in the next few days.
Adios, amigos.